Hi, my name's John. Welcome back to another summary of a sermon. We have just been moving through Galatians. We're about wrapping it up. And in this section of Galatians chapter 5, Paul talks about walking in the Spirit. And that can be kind of a weird, mystical kind of idea. But here's an analogy. If you ever been backpacking or know somebody that has, backpacking is a lot of walking. It's really nothing, it's not rocket science. You just walk all day, day after day, big pack on your back. You got your food, your filters, your tent, your sleeping bag, all your clothes, your rain gear, all that kind of stuff. And you just keep walking. And my wife and I used to lead backpacking trips with college students for like 15 years. Not a 15-year trip. And it always amazed me how you can cover so much ground by just simply walking. Small steps added together are amazing in how far you can really go. So Paul says here in Galatians 5:16, I say walk by the Spirit and you will not carry out the desires of the flesh. Note, he doesn't say avoiding the desires of the flesh means you will walk in the Spirit. He doesn't say that. So pro tip number 1, the key to avoiding sin is not focusing on avoiding sin, right? He says you focus on walking in the Spirit, and it's a promise. You will not carry out the desires of the flesh. That's amazing. So if you want to avoid sin, don't focus on avoiding sin. Focus on the Spirit, walking. And the verb there means ongoing, continually walking. It's a present tense imperative. You just go. A lot of walking. You just keep going. And so when we're tired, when we're frustrated, sometimes we need to stop. Sometimes we need to stop, take the rock out of our shoe, eat, drink, rest, but then we keep walking, okay? So that's what he's talking about there. So the key to avoiding sin is to walk in the Spirit. So we'll keep moving down here. And before these backpacking trips, I would always get the students around, and a lot of them were really nervous, right? Because they never done this, and you're just going off into the wilderness, and so they were kind of stressed out. And I would gather around in a circle, and I would say, hey, here's a clue, here's a tip. If each one of us on this trip, multiple times a day, say sincerely these 4 magic words, this trip will be amazing and enjoyable. Those 4 magic words were, how can I help? If a stronger person comes up to somebody who's struggling and they just say, hey, how can I help? Oh, sometimes they'd be like, oh, my pack is killing me. I got blisters. And well, here, let me take some of your gear. I'll take your sleeping bag or the stove or whatever it is. And with blisters, how can I help? Well, I've got this blister. Well, my wife is amazing at fixing blisters, so she would take care of that. But just those words, how can I help? All right, that is what Paul is talking about here. And he gets to that point here. He says in chapter 6, verse 2, bear one another's burdens and fulfill the law of Christ. Bear one another's burdens. Now that is a very specific word. It means excessive burdens. Burdens that are crushing you like a season, a difficult season, emotionally or relationally or financially, where all the things go wrong at one time. Excessive burdens. He's calling on these Galatians to come alongside each other and help each other. Now remember, the whole book of Galatians is about the Judaizers and the Galatians, law versus spirit, flesh versus spirit. And Paul is saying that if you follow the flesh and the law, you're going to end up biting and devouring one another. You're not helping each other. But if you follow the Spirit and that following the Spirit, walking in the Spirit, you end up lovingly serving one another, and part of that service is coming alongside somebody else who's struggling and say, how can I help? Can you imagine a Judaizer, one of those Pharisees who's all uppity and so arrogant and confident and harsh and mean? They would never come up to somebody who's stumbling and say, how can I help? They'd kick them off the road, right? So that's what Paul's doing here. And then chapter 6, he further, chapter 6, verse 5, he further explains, for each person will have to bear his own load. Okay, that's a good contrast, right? Because we all have our stuff. I mean, only occasionally. I mean, of all the years we did these backpack trips, I think I remember once where somebody was struggling and somebody said, how can I help? And this big, strong guy, he literally took the entire backpack and threw it upside down on top of his own backpack. That's unusual, right? We all have our own gear to take. but we can take some of our excessive baggage and have somebody else carry it. So we have our own stuff to carry, and then when we're walking in the Spirit, we have the power behind us, kind of like wind in our sails, and we are able, walking in the Spirit, the power of the Spirit, we're able to come alongside other people who are in a difficult season and say, how can I help? And this is a picture Paul is painting these Galatians. They're not seeing this spirit of love in the Judaizers. Okay, they're seeing the works of the flesh in the Judaizers, and Paul is painting this picture of the fruit of the Spirit, helping and loving, and this is the result of walking in the Spirit. And so this is what Paul wants them to know, and it's encouraging to us, encouraging to me, and I hope it's encouraging to you. Thanks.